Living and breathing La Vida Boa. Welcome to the Boa Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Demora, alongside host Nick Colhay. We're here to have conversations to inspire, to learn, and to change our lives one conversation at a time.
What's up, everybody? I'm your co-host, Nick Colhay. This is the Boa Life Podcast, episode number 17. Are you ready to do this, Steve?
Let's go. I couldn't be more happy than to have this guest here today. I don't even know how we landed him, Nick. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think the only reason we got you is because you're not running for office, because it is that time of year where it'd probably be impossible to be able to get you to sit down here. What is it like not having a run?
You know, first of all, thanks for having me on here. It's great to be here, and I love the title, The Boa Life. You know, fun fact, I have some Portuguese in my family. You probably didn't know that. I have two uncles, and I grew up doing masonry work with them, and made me a good wrestler because I built up all these muscles that I have since lost, Nick. So that's how that works. And
you always get them back.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. So thanks for having me. Yeah, it's weird, right? So this is for the first time in 20-something years that I haven't been on the ballot in the fall, but you know, it's kind of liberating in a way too. And I just kind of sit back. I don't get involved. I'm just not really, you know, I'm watching, but I'm not watching. It's hard because, you know, when you know a material so well, you want to chirp in, but you can't, you know, and you got to let go. And so I've really made a conscious effort to let go, and I wish everybody well. And it's all about Danbury, and whoever wins, I'm sure that they'll put Danbury first.
Well, thank you. As a member of the greater Danbury community, I certainly was a business person in the area, and I worked in the area. It was a pleasure to have you as a higher up, a decision maker, and you did a fantastic job. How was it transitioning first, not being in politics, although you were always involved and you certainly have some pedigree. I know, you know, you have some heritage there, but how was it switching hats from civilian life to then politics, and now back to civilian life?
Yeah, so initially I didn't get involved in politics. I didn't want to be. My father, as you alluded to, was mayor back in the 70s, and it was like a nightmare. And in the sense that, people would call you in the middle of the night because, you know, cell phones weren't a thing and there was no Twitter. We were talking about that off the air and stuff like that. So, I kind of knew what I didn't want. I said, I don't want that life, right? So, but I knew I loved history, I loved politics, so I decided to be a teacher. And so I went to Central Connecticut State University. I did a little stint in the military, went to Central Connecticut State University, and I got a degree in history. Actually, I minored in colonial history, and in secondary in political science, and finished and completed their teaching certification program, and ended up at Danbury High. And I spent 14 years there, and that was fun. It was a great job. You know, when I left to become mayor at Danbury High, I didn't leave all grumpy and I hate this and I can't stand it. Like, I still love my job. I love the kids. It was a good time. But while I was at Danbury High, you know, I got involved, right? I mean, people, you know, it's like The Godfather. They suck you in, right? So, I'm on a committee, and next thing you know, I'm on the planning commission, and then I'm running for a city council, and then I ran for state rep, and I was elected to the state house in 1998, and then was reelected in 2000, and then I actually was going to run for mayor in 2001, even if Gene was still going to run. You know, Gene Eric was a very popular mayor. Only because I just wanted the experience. It wasn't so much about Gene. It was more about, I just wanted to run citywide and have that experience. Well, as it turned out, I hadn't told anybody. I pretty much made my decision, but he announced in April he wasn't going to run again. I want to be clear, had nothing to do with me. He was just on his own glide path in terms of his life. And when he, as soon as he decided not to run, everybody called me and said, hey, you got to run. I'm like, oh, I was going to kind of do it anyways, but okay. But I had to wait until the legislative session was over, and then I ran for mayor. And that was fun. That campaign was one of my best memories of politics, in the sense that we just did it with mirrors, and we had no money. I had a bunch of kids like 18, 19 years old, nobody of any gravitas that supported us, and we just went out and just beat every door down and just dragged people to the polls, and won by 138 votes against a very good friend of mine, Chris Sotero. even after 2019, we still have lunch and dinner and talk and hang out. So it's just a small world that way. And I have a very warm regard for Chris. And we stayed friends. So that was a lot of fun. And that was really the start of my full-time political career. Although I love the state house because it was a macro approach, right? You know, the problem, it's not a problem, but the challenge with being mayor is, A, you can't go to any grocery store or any restaurant anywhere without somebody somewhere having a problem about something. And B, you know, you're focusing on filling that pothole. And at the legislature, it was much bigger and broader challenges that were in front of you. So I kind of liked that work actually better. And I think that's why I was so interested in running for governor, because I felt like it, you know, that bigger approach, that 50,000 foot level, I was just a little bit better at, although I think I did a good job as mayor. So, you know, I did that. I ran for governor a couple times, and I got elected here. I was honored to be elected 10 times as mayor, and had an opportunity from Governor Lamont, and took him up on it after a lot of his convincing and talking to me about it, and here I am. So making that pivot wasn't that hard. I look at life in terms of 15s. So I had 15 years as a teacher, 20 years as mayor, and I got, I think, another 15-year spurt of work, and then I hope to be on the beach somewhere renting umbrellas and maybe giving you guys Coronas with limes and stuff
Nice.
like that.
We're looking forward to that too. How did that phone call from the governor go?
Well, I hope he doesn't get upset at me, but we're buddies. So he called a number of times, right? And I just wasn't ready to make that jump. But, you know, the one thing that makes the governor very, very smart is, one, he likes to recruit a team around him that if he doesn't know about something, they do. And two, he wants opposing different opinions in the room. So I'm always that guy. You know, there's always like 10 people, heads are bobbing like bobbleheads, and then there's me. And I'm like, well, what about this? But generally speaking, I try not to be a negative person. I'm not a negative person. You know, I try to give him the very best feedback that I can, and I try to give, I don't tell him what he wants to hear, I tell him what he needs to hear. And he's been great. And, you know, it's turned out we've struck up a really close friendship because of that, I think. And I think it's a good model for the state too, you know, where I stayed a Republican, I'm still a Republican, and I told him I wouldn't change parties, so don't ask. And he said, that's okay, I don't want you to. He's obviously a Democrat, and just shows that two people get along, and, you know, if they work through their stuff, which is what we do.
That's lovely, because that's the type of people we want to engage with, you know, no matter what your affiliation is, no matter what your opinions are, you know, people can still sit down and have a decent conversation.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem that we have these days, is that there is a definite divide, right?
Yeah.
You know, very tribal, and that's kind of probably one of the benefits that you get from, you know, being in a city that's like the city that we come from. You're working with all different types of people. I mean, you did a tremendous job. I think you have great tools to be the leader that you were, and you're very a phenomenal public speaker. You're very engaging. And then you really adapted to the social media. I mean, was that a game changer for you when you were running the city?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, early on in my first administration, Mike McLaughlin, who was my chief of staff, used to say, you know, you really ought to like get a website up and do all this stuff. I'm like, I don't have time for this stuff. Who has time? Nobody reads that crap, right? And I don't even think Facebook was out to 2005 or so. So I kind of stayed away from it. But when I discovered Twitter, I lost my mind, right? And to the point where, you know, I had to think twice, type once, right? Because sometimes you want to say stuff that really wouldn't be appropriate for the mayor to say. I mean, humorous stuff that you just can't say. So I adopted that early on, and what really drove up my numbers, a couple of things that drove up my numbers, but one of them was teasing the kids about closings for school. And one night I was sitting there, and I was sitting by the fire, and it was snowing out, and, you know, I'd been out with the crews, and that was pretty much I would go out with the plow guys and ride around, check on the streets. If somebody was calling, I personally would show up at your house and go, okay, what's the problem, miss? Well, you know, this hasn't been done. I said, we're going to get to it, you know, and I'd radio somebody and get them over. And I took pride in doing that stuff. So I got done doing that, and I'm sitting by the fire kind of warming up, and the kids start, you know, Mayor Boughton, is there school tomorrow? Hey, Marky, is there school tomorrow? You know, so I kept saying, I don't make that decision, the superintendent does. I don't make that decision, the superintendent does. I get like a million times. Then I finally said, the heck with it. I'm just gonna go with it. So I'd be like, I don't know. You know, I heard Carver High School's canceled. I'm not sure about Danbury High. Or I don't know, I heard, the high school from Greece, right? Right? Or I don't know, I heard Buddy Cianci Junior High is canceled, but not Danbury. I don't know, I heard Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is no morning kindergarten, they're canceled, and no after school sports. But I don't know about Danbury, I just trolled them like crazy, and then that just blew it up. Like generations of kids would tell their brothers and sisters, follow Boughton because he'll tell you about school, that's one thing I'll miss this winter is not being able to do that anymore. But so that kind of blew it up, and then it became a real medium to be able to get information to people. People rely on it as a trusted source for stuff that's going on within the city, and kind of adopted that. And then I did the Instagram. I'm on Snapchat. I still run those channels. Facebook is really big with some of our seniors, and I find it to be a lot of fun. Now I'm not so active. I'm still active, but not as active as I was. I just don't have the time. But every once in a while, you'll see a good one up there for me. Yeah,
the median's definitely changed. I mean, that's why we're coming into this, and we really want to do positive things like you've done. So we picked this medium. I think it's the future. If it's not here already, I think the future. Maybe not TV anymore. I always loved watching you doing some of the things you did. I mean, some of the memorable things. I remember your pitch to Amazon, and then I remember. By
the way, I was first with that.
I think you might.
I was first, and then the mayor of Washington D.C. She 3 days later, Mary Bowser, who I know through the mayor's conference, she did hers. And they spent, it was funny, I looked up the numbers. So I spent a grand total of about $500 on ours. And that was just to buy the box or something. Or I can't remember what it was. She spent $65,000 doing hers, right? And that, by the way, that included the packet I sent to Amazon. And then I geofenced their Spokane, Washington headquarters. So you couldn't turn on a computer inside the Amazon headquarters without seeing my face pop up saying, hey, come to Danbury. It was so bad, they contacted us and said, you guys shut that thing off, please. We get it, we got your stuff. You're under due consideration or whatever. It was so, and we ended up getting a distribution center, right? So there was something for that. We released positive in there, but it was a lot of fun. That was a good one. That was a good hit. And the other one I did, there was a bear stuck in the tree, and this was like 2009, down by St. Peter's School. And I'm getting in the shower, and the chief of police calls me and says, hey, Mayor, I just want to let you know we got a bear stuck in the tree. It's a beautiful spring day in May, and just want to give you a heads up. And we're down there, police down there, fire's down there, we're trying to figure out what to do, but just in case you see all the traffic down there. I said, okay. So I heard him, got dressed, I went down there, so I got to see this, right? So I get down there, and right on Worcester Street in the tree is a bear adjacent to the St. Peter's parking lot, and right by Bishop Curtis in that area. So I'm like, yep, that's a bear up there, no question about it. So now, the cops got like a rifle out, and I got 300 kids with their little noses pressed against the windows of St. Peter's School. And I'm like, you are not shooting that bear. I'm not going to let Yogi get killed on Main Street. And these poor kids are going to be terrorized for the rest of their lives. And no, not doing that. What do we do? I go, well, let's call the Connecticut Wildlife and see if we can get somebody down here. And as it turned out, Deep did send a crew down. Then we got the fire department there. They put out a big net. And they shot the bear once with a tranquilizer. He went higher up, which is a danger. They do that sometimes. So they hit it again, and it took effect. He fell, and the firefighters caught the bear in the net. And of course, all the kids saw it, and they were cheering, and they're all happy and everything. They laid the bear out, and we brought the kids out, and the wildlife person, the forestry agent, said, hey, listen, if you want the kids to come up, and they can come up and look at the bear and get close to it if you want. It's going to be 9 hours before the thing is up, right? I go, okay, all right, well, I'll talk to the teacher. So I said, you want to bring the kids over? You can walk them by. She goes, is it safe? And she goes, they swear it's safe. And there's about 80 guns around here, so I wouldn't worry. So some kids got to go up and pet the bear on the head.
My goodness.
And right. It was like a big thing. Well, so I took pictures of that. There's two side stories to this. And while the whole thing was happening, I was tweeting, right? So I was like, bear caught in tree. I took a picture, right? And then I would start doing little funny things like, we can barely see him, and welcome to Danbury, right? And I start tweeting out, I start pounding it out. And next thing you know, the Blaze picks it up, Barstool picks it up, right? Because it went on and on and on. And it became like a funny thing that went viral, all about this bear in the tree. And then I'm like, we finally got him. And then as a kid, I took another picture of the kids walking by, and some lady from Greenwich went like, you're gonna kill, what is wrong with you? You kill those kids? I'm like, listen, there's a people here, this is what they do for a living. They know what, this bear's so drugged up, it isn't going anywhere for a long time. It's going to have the worst hangover ever. But it was just funny. But it really kind of, it went viral, it went hugely viral, and it went everywhere, and it was on every sort of major medium, and I had a lot of fun with that. And then I just kind of built on it. And the other one, this one you don't know about, I came up with the name of Snotorious B.I.G. for a big snowstorm we were having, right? So we were having a big snowstorm, same deal with the kids. So I said, what if we name the storm? Remember how they used to name, every channel would name the storm different. Nobody was on the same page. So I said, I got it, Snotorious B.I.G., right? Because I'm a big fan of Notorious B.I.G., right? I put that out there. It goes viral. People are laughing and dying. Chicago starts referring, because it was coming from the Midwest, they start referring to it. ESPN, I'm watching ESPN. So Snotorious B.I.G. will be here later tonight, courtesy of Mayor Mark Boughton or whatever. And it was like so much fun. But those were the days when like Twitter was fun, right?
Yeah.
You could do stuff. We were talking about this off camera. Now it's gotten really heartless, mean, one-upmanship, highly partisan, and it's not a good medium anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate, but it was fun. So that's some of the stuff I did on that.
Do you have a natural like comedic nature to you from teaching high school kids, which you gotta be lighthearted to do that. We've seen you on camera for 20 plus years. We all know you're a funny guy. Is there something deep down that this is almost like it turned into be super fun for you and still hold the title as mayor? Funny?
How am I funny? What exactly makes me funny?
Are you a clown?
No, I'm just saying. Am I a clown? Do I amuse you? No. That's a great way. So, anyways, yeah, I've always been that way. If you talk to any of my ex-students, I had a great time in class. We learned, we would do what we're supposed to be doing, and I just always have had a really, I think sometimes fun sense of humor. So practical jokes I'm big on. I used to do them all the time on people, and they were tasteful, but they were funny. We just had a ball with that kind of stuff, whether I was teaching school, and even as mayor, most definitely I would pull pranks. If we were doing a retirement party for a firefighter, once you've been there for 15 years or so, you know everybody in the room, you know what they're looking for, and I would just go right through the entire room and just tear through everybody. It was like a roast. The place would be rocking, laughing or whatever. But, they would do it to me too, so you got to be willing to take it.
Oh,
and as a teacher, you can't, crack on the kids if you're not willing to let them hit you back, right? There's nothing worse than a teacher who might say something about you and everybody laughs and you laugh too, and then you're like, yeah, but well, look at you, and then they give you detention, right? You can't be that way. You got to be willing to take it if you're going to dish it out. And so I was always willing to do that, and the kids always knew there was sort of a line there. You can't cross the line. But I was blessed to teach a lot of great kids. I still stay in contact with a lot of them.
You need that reciprocity when you're doing stuff like that. I think that's probably one of the main reasons that you had such the longest standing mayor in the city of Danbury, right?
Yeah, I think somebody asked me the other day, how did you do that for 19 3/4 or 7/8 of a year? I go, I don't know. I go, it really was.
I think you evolved with the position. You grew. You do. You do, and
you mature a little bit too.
Yeah, and I think when you're doing a good job, you get reelected, and I think that's why you were there so long. And you probably could have been there for as long as you wanted.
Yeah, definitely, but I do, from a democracy standpoint, I think it's good to have change. I think this election, again, I don't want to talk about any individual candidates or whatever, but we'll challenge the community to take that next evolution, whatever that may be, right? So, and I think that's important for the community, and having so much institutional memory in my head is great, and I'll help anybody ask, right? I've told both sides. You have a question, you have a concern, you want to talk about something, I'll give you the flat two-dimensional, no spin. Here's why this was done this way, whether you like it or not, that's why that decision was made. But that's not necessarily healthy for the community. And I thought long and hard about that. I said, it's time for me to do, it's not good for me because I become atrophied and I want to learn something else. And it's not good for our residents that I think need change every once in a while. Yeah. So that was a big consideration in making my decision. The money was nice too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I really said, you know what, it's time to get somebody else in there, let them do their thing and go from there. We used to change mayors fairly often. We would have, the longest was Gene. He was 12. That was very rare. Jimmy Dyer was 8. and everybody else was 6 or 4 years.
Yeah, usually cycles.
Yeah, and we go in cycles.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of a rarity.
In Danbury, what's probably one of the hardest things you had to deal with? Being a lifetime Danburian, I mean, I lived in New Fairfield, but Danbury schools my whole life, or, shirt and tie, all that good stuff. So it's interesting to know what you experience and what are some of the hardest things you had to deal with.
I think, Danbury is a place where you have a little bit of rural, you have suburban and urban areas, right? So you have this very diverse geography. You have beautiful neighborhoods, and you have other neighborhoods that are very poor and that are struggling. I think that the challenge for me was always to remember who I serve, why I serve them, and to understand that we are the 10th most diverse city in the United States of America. So you know what? You better be at everything, and you better be sensitive to each and every culture to the extent you can be, right? So whether it's a Portuguese event, a Brazilian event, there is a difference between those two cultures, and don't intermingle them.
Oh, I've learned that quickly.
It's offensive. No, to both groups, right? So
Right.
you want to make sure that you respect both cultures. And our Filipino association, our Cambodian association. I mean, you really learn a lot about the community. Our Ecuadorian Civic Center, which is growing by leaps and bounds, and our Dominican Club, and all those different organizations, and you want to be respectful. And I think why I've been successful over the last, say, 10 years in particular, and I think, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I think, look, anybody would have had a hard time this year taking me out because I've always given respect to each and every one of those communities. And I enjoy them. And people can tell when I'm at their party, I'm having fun. I learned early on, I learned don't go to the Portuguese Cultural Center until the end of the night. And there's a reason for that. I'll tell you why. Because if you go early and you leave, some people will take that, they'll be offended. They don't like that, right? So if you got other things going on that night, and oftentimes I'd have 2 or 3 events I'd be racing around the city to go to, I would always make that the last stop. I tried to get there around 9-ish. The ladies there would have all my food ready. They knew exactly what I liked and what I didn't like. It was great, and I could stay as long as I want. And if I want to go downstairs to the bar, I could do that too. That was your sort of your home stop after the work. And people really appreciated that. But that took a year or 2 to figure out. And you gotta say some Portuguese phrases, right? I mean, you can't just go up there and speak English all the time. People appreciate that you took the time and the respect to learn just a little bit of language. Portuguese is a very, very difficult language to learn, but you can learn some stuff, parabéns and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And try to make people, just show them that you really respect their history. And if you left early, I learned early on that's not good. In fact, I would have people call me. Some people that all of us I'm not related to, but other people would say, you can't do this. This is how you do that. I say, okay, thank you. I do appreciate it. And so you learn that early on. You can always leave the party at the club once the dancing starts. Once you've had dessert and the dancing starts, if you want to hang out, you can hang out. If it's been a long day, sometimes I'd go home, but it's up to me at that point. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But if you walk out and everybody's still sitting there, that's disrespectful. So, and the food, I was always willing to try. I'd try anything. I would try anything once. And some stuff I really loved and I learned to love. Portuguese is not a good example because I grew up in a lot of ways on Portuguese food. If you lived in Danbury and you're from Danbury, you cannot experience the Portuguese experience. You just can't. So I knew what I liked and what I didn't like. But there are other different, same thing with the Lebanon Club, same kind of thing, right? You learn what you like and what you don't like quickly. My father used to pick up bread at 5 o'clock in the morning on Spring Street on Sunday mornings, and he would pick up Portuguese rolls over at Portuguese Square at about the same time every Sunday. I mean, we'd have the same thing for breakfast every Sunday along with eggs and stuff. So you learned about the things that you liked. But there are other cultures. The Indian culture, they have a big table out there. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm not sure. I get some stuff was uber hot, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pass. Thank you. It was good. They would laugh. People would laugh when I'm like, no, it's good. And then other stuff, you develop a lifelong affinity for it. So it's one of the beautiful things about Danbury, but it's one of the things that you really have to work at to really be respectful to everybody that's here. You do that, they'll send you back to office time and time again. Even if they don't agree with you all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit a nerve there, and did any of it had to do with? I think there's people that have wings, and then there's people that have roots. I have roots in this area. I want to spend the rest of my life here. I'd like to see other places, do other things. But I mean, did the fact that you were, a native and you've been here all that, you think that helped you out a lot too during your term?
Yeah,
terms?
no question about it. I think people knew that my family had been here for literally centuries, extended family, that we were committed to the community, and that, I wasn't going anywhere or wasn't trying to fly in or fly out or whatever. Graduated Danbury High School, went to Danbury Public Schools, had Danbury teachers, which, by the way, people always say, well, what do you attribute some of your success that you've had? My public school teachers at Danbury High School were the best bunch of maniacs that you could ever have teach your kids. And I found that out. I really saw an inside view when I went there to teach, because a lot of those people were still there from when I was a student. And I got to see a different side of them and how much they cared. I only saw them in your two-dimensional view when you were a kid. Seeing that other way, I realized what a great staff they were. And look, I was a tough kid, not tough, I mean, if you live in Danbury, you're always, you couldn't avoid getting in a fight once in a while, things like that. And I wasn't afraid to mix it up. But I was a tough kid to get to sit down and do something. And there were some great teachers that just recognized that and said, I'm going to teach you. And my old man was like, whatever you got to do, it's okay by us.
Take a try.
Yeah, and that was it. And I had Ralph Toscano taught me how to write. I could not. I'm not saying I couldn't write is not a good statement. It's an exaggeration. But I had a hard time, difficulty writing a sentence. That man sat with me for an entire year, taught me how to write, gave me a gift and love of writing that I still have today. And, he didn't know that, right? I don't think he ever knew that, but that's the impact he had on my life. Herb Hinsey, who is still alive, is up in Provincetown, moved there when he retired. Herb would have long conversations with me in homeroom prior to homeroom getting started. In fact, I used to go to his room particularly because I had a hard time with adjusting. And he would just sit there and listen. And he'd have me do little chores for him and errands and ask me questions. And he was an English teacher and inspired me. There's a lady, she's passed on, Ann Thorpe, who, I love movies. She had a movie called Film Appreciation. I made a movie in her film with a bunch of my friends, and she gave me, it wasn't Steven Spielberg-esque, but it was pretty good. And, she gave me this, love of media. And so there's people like that inspire you, and they don't even know they're doing it. And some of the people that you would think would inspire you don't, and some of these people that you don't give a shot when you walk in that room on the first day of school, by the middle of the year, you're like, I love this person. I would do anything for them. And that's the kind of staff that was there.
Yeah, Steve and I often repeat stuff like that. You have to be passionate about what you do and just have a purpose, right? Someone was just saying that a couple of weeks ago on one of the podcasts, like, BOA life is having a purpose. And teachers like that, and then you go back and see them, it's amazing because you want to pass that on. Yeah,
they're funny because even when I started there, I started teaching at Danbury High in 1987.
86.
You graduated 86. Yeah. So when I started there, everybody had another job. Everybody. In fact, when I did my student teaching, and I can say this because these guys aren't around anymore, I did my student teaching in Waterbury at JFK, John F. Kennedy, which is in the town plot section. And there, I didn't really spend a lot of time student teaching until the very end. I spent my time cleaning the Waterbury pools because my teacher, my co-teacher, who was supposed to be teaching me to teach, and his department chair had the contract to clean all the pools in Waterbury. So it was, hey, Boughton, go get the chlorine. Hey, Boughton, go do this. Hey, Boughton, go clean that. Hey, Boughton. And then eventually, after a while, he let me in the classroom. And then he let me start talking to the kids. And then he let me start teaching the kids. And that gave me, when I saw him do what he did, that gave me a lifelong passion for teaching as well. So, I think that you're 100% right. But seeing the different side of people, because we didn't make a lot of, my first pay day was $15,000. I was still waiting on tables at Chuck's when I was teaching high school. So it was weird. I talked to a parent, and 2 nights later, I'm getting them their prime rib.
Yeah, you weren't going into teaching for the money, that's for sure. Both my parents were educators. It's definitely a calling, and so is public office. I mean, I can't imagine all the lives that that you've touched, especially in politics. Obviously, we always talk about the BOA life, and we talk about the BOA life, the good life, being a life of balance. Obviously, when you were the mayor, I can't even imagine the workload. I can't even imagine how many. You probably didn't even calculate time because it was probably worthless to do that, right? Your life was dedicated to the service of helping people in the city for sure. How did you manage that? How did you manage the stresses of that? How did you manage that through, a tumor? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did a good job early on, to be frank with you, in managing that. I wish I had worked out a better work-life balance. I threw myself all into the job, and I think in many ways that hurt my marriage at the time, because I was out at 3 events. And no woman wants to go to 3 different events. Like as soon as we sit down, I'm like, okay, everybody good, let's go. We're going over here. We're going to this club. We're going to that. You know what I mean? It's just, now if there were things where we would sit and stay for the night, that's different. But that's rare because Danbury has so many different things going on. And by the way, they don't want to see the council president. They don't want to see their councilman. They want to see the mayor. They want to see the mayor. That's it.
Right.
So they know the mayor, they know the governor, and they know the president. They don't frankly care anybody else. It's not as important to them other than seeing the mayor. So, I think I frankly could have done a better job at that, but you live and you learn. I think that learning how to balance out those things were important. I didn't miss a meeting in 19 years. I never missed a city council meeting, not once. Through family loss, crisis, sickness, illness, whatever the case may be, I never missed a meeting. Never missed a vote in the General Assembly either, by the way. And pretty proud of that. And I didn't take a vacation in probably 15 years. So, but that's how I was raised, right? I mean, all of us that grew up around here, we were all work rats and constantly, always just doing stuff. So, and I loved the job. I did. So it was an honor to do it. So, I could have done better. I have encouraged people who do take the job to say, look, if you schedule your time right, you don't need to be at every single ribbon cutting there is, right? At some point, you have to say no. And I should have done that, I think, a little bit more. But that's on me.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you live and you learn, but you certainly left your mark and left a legacy in being a productive and a fantastic mayor, at least in my opinion. And you certainly have incredible stories. I think one story I wanted to get into a little bit was that John Oliver deal. I mean, it's like you've left your mark in many ways, and certainly you've been in I would say in the national conscience in some of the things you've done, and certainly with that. I mean, how did that happen?
That was the craziest thing. So here we are in the middle of the COVID, and John Oliver does a bit about Connecticut. It actually had to do with, and being an attorney, you would be familiar with how you select juries. And he picked on New Britain and Hartford. He actually had his facts wrong, right? So he was saying that Connecticut picked juries from outside of Hartford that were predominantly white to sit over a person of color, right? And that obviously is supposed to be a jury of your peers, right? That's how it's supposed to work. But that was the federal system. But he thought it was, his researcher thought it was our state courts. We had it right. It was the feds that had screwed it up, and they corrected it. They knew they had made a mistake. So in New Britain and Hartford, we had this, so he picked on them a little bit, and then he just blurted out, if we're going to pick on somebody, let's pick on Danbury, right? And then he went into this whole riff about how horrible we are and how, we've got trained something this and whatever. And when I saw that, I was like, all right.
He even went as far as saying F Danbury or something, right?
Yeah, a couple of times. And your kids.
Yes, that's right.
And he said he'd come and whip anybody's butt.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that. So, so I see that and I'm like, okay, all right, we must respond. Because everybody was sending me the clip and whatever. But it's the middle of COVID, right? So you're trying to follow the protocols and not, I don't want to be out there without a mask on and stuff like that. I'm sensitive to that. And I believe strongly in the science and all that stuff. So I'm like, no, we're going to make a video. I said, we are going to make a video. And I came up with the idea of naming the sewer plant after him. And I came up with that line. He loved that line where I said, it may be, crap to you, but it's, what did I say? I said, why are we naming the sewer plant after you, John? Because it's full of crap just like you are. But I used the S word, right? We bleated it out, so it was funny. So you know what I said, but I didn't actually say it, right? So we put that on. And he, according to his staff, he went wild. He loved it, right? And there have been other things named after him. There's a tuberculosis ward in Australia named after him. Somebody did something very similar over there. And then there's some other thing in the U.S. that's named after him. So then he sent back and said, okay, another video he does. If you name this after me, then I will donate $60,000 to various charities and to the food bank and to this and that. And so I'm like, okay. And I said, if you come to Danbury and you bring checks, we're going to name it after you. And if you don't come, we're going to name this outhouse after you or something like that, right? So we made another video. So we responded. He played them, on the air, which a lot of people watch the show. I was shocked. And so and then it was game on, right? People are bombarding us. They're texting. There's, from all over the country. And they got a hold of us. The staff got a hold of us, and they said, are you really serious? I go, yeah, we'll do this. So I went to the council. Believe it or not, I had like 2 no votes. Right, and it's all in good. It's just a goof, right? We're just trying to get people a laugh in a horrible time.
Bridging the gap between
right, and it's a horrible time, and COVID's going on, and there's this uncertainty, and people are locked in, and I'm like, let's have a little fun. So I told the council, I go, will you people lighten up and just do the right thing here? And by the way, you're free to make a funny speech while you vote yes. Don't be afraid to preen for the cameras. I was trying to tell them it's an opportunity for them to get on TV too, but they didn't get it, so they voted yes. But we named the plant, put a sign up, and people started coming. And people have not stopped coming to that plant. Now, we did the sign with Oliver. He did show up. We set it up with him. I could not tell anybody because I had people that wanted to meet him. And the whole city wanted to meet him, right? And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. There was a lot of people. And I was telling you off the air that is the first time he left his apartment in New York City was to come to Danbury for the naming of that sewer plant. So he shows up in a limo, nice gentleman, but he won't get out of the car. Gets out of the car, has that box on with a fan on it, and it was in a movie, Contagion. Jude Law had it on, if you saw that. I saw that film, right? He borrowed it from him, so he was like in this rubber suit and everything walking around. And it did smell pretty bad that day too, by the way. And I had the Public Works Department built a whole stage for him, and we really did it up. It really looked good. We had carpeted the stage. And the guys in Public Works, they loved it. They got into it and everything. And, well, what about if we do this? What if we do that? We had a big sign, and we did an official naming ceremony. I gave him a plaque, cut the ribbon, and I had him sign some stuff that we raffled off for Connecticut Food Bank and for the St. James Food Bank as well. So Fishes and Loaves, I think it is. So anyway, so we did all this stuff. Great guy. And while he's there, I'm like, all right, I got to ask you, why Danbury? Of all places, why Danbury? And he said, honestly, we were goofing around the office. I was on Zoom, and the kids were goofing around, and we just went like that. And the finger went on Danbury's name. Yeah. So I was like, okay. And he goes, I really have no animus, whatever. So we did it. It was great. It was a big hit. The problem was so many people were coming to visit this thing that it's an active construction site, and there was heavy equipment operating in and out of there. They were blocking the road. They were walking all over the place with their cameras. So we had to build a little reception area when you go in. You can visit there. There's a sign. You could stand there. And I've been there. I've talked to people from New Zealand. I talked to a couple that had driven all the way out from New Mexico to see this and take their picture with the John Oliver Memorial Sewer Plant. And by the way, I know it says memorial. The reason is, as I told John on the air, it's because you're dead to me. So I called it the memorial thing. So, my point is, it just took off, and it definitely went, like each salvo was highlighted on the nightly news back and forth.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And it was the thing. It was a lot of fun, and we raised a lot of money for good causes. And off of that, we spun off about $200,000 to various food banks and to put dinner on people's table.
All in good fun. It's amazing we talk about social media so much and being big on Twitter early days to become popular and everything. It's like, it's not such a bad thing, because when COVID hit, I remember you doing a lot of videos at your office. Was Live at 5?
Live at 5, yeah. That was one of my creations where I the live. So we got time? If I
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I had this thing where during a snowstorm, I would take my dog out for a walk in the storm. And it got really popular. Like if I didn't do it, people would be like, where's our Ellie video? And it was on Facebook Live. So I said, this is a medium that if used right, you could very well, it could be like a podcast or with a much broader, you really have a captured audience there. So I came up with the idea of Live at 5, did it with Taylor O'Brien, who works in the office. And we would do the first, 10 minutes would be about COVID or what's happening, case count, things, vaccination sites or testing sites, things that people need to know, or where they can donate food and things like that. And then we would I'd have guests. I had everybody from the governor. I had Senator Murphy. I had Spiro Smith, the doctor, a good friend of ours that we know. I had all kinds of people on there. I had Glover Teixeira, you know.
Fantastic.
And
MMA
he's a great
fighter.
guy, yeah, he was really good. And he had COVID at that time, so he was a great guest to have on in terms of, you know, telling people what not to do. And Glover's a good guy, and he was a real gentleman. And so we had all kinds of neat people on there, and I would give him like a 10-minute interview, not even 10 minutes, and then I would have the Fun Five, which were 5 questions I would ask you in rapid fire that you'd, and everyone was different. And if you answered them right, I would give you a Dundee, which is, you know, those awards from the office,
Yeah.
right? So you would get a Dundee. The governor's got one sitting on his shelf in his office. And we'd say, you want to get out Dundee? And it was just silly questions like, you know, Rolling Stones or Beatles or something like that, just to make people laugh. And it got popular, and it got so popular that I couldn't do it every night because content is a big deal for these things. You don't have content, it can be boring. So we would talk about Netflix shows and about what's on Hulu, and because people were streaming like crazy during that time period. So anyways, long story short is that we cut it down, I think, to Mondays and Thursdays to wrap up the week, and one to start the week, one to end the week. And people they were so mad when we went off the air when I took this other job. And I had like this fan lady from Cape Cod that still writes to me today wanting me back on the air. I go, well, I'm not really. I had people calling me. I have a buddy that I play a lot of golf with, and he's probably the most, he can be very critical in a very positive way. So when he says something positive, it's good. He goes, you're a really good interviewer. You should be doing that, And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, you can't make any money on it. But it did, at its height, how about 250,000 views?
Amazing.
Is that
Wow.
unbelievable?
That's incredible.
And easily 1,500, 2,000 shares.
Well, it's brilliant because, during the pandemic, we're not seeing anyone. It's a way to communicate with people live. Exactly.
Right.
They
And
see
I
you
used my
at the moment.
Samsung phone, and I bought a mic from Amazon, and I had no professional lighting there, but it was a bright room anyways. Didn't need it, and we would just go. I would go on a riff about The Walking Dead or something I didn't agree with. Like I tried to keep away from heavy stuff. People got heavy stuff all day long. They were nervous.
Yeah, they don't want to talk.
They were scared, So I tried to keep them engaged with fun things that they could do with their kids or whatever. But it was fun. I enjoyed doing that. I loved it. And then people would start calling in and saying, hey, if you sing something from Queen, I'll donate $1,000 to the food bank. So I'm like, all right. So we all dressed up like Queen, and I was Freddie Mercury, and we sang
Didn't you
Bohemian
dress up as a turkey into a run or something?
I did Bohemian Rhapsody. Somebody said, if you dress up in a chicken outfit and run down Main Street, I will give $2,000 to whichever food pantry you want. So I would rotate them around, So I'm like, I would use Hillside. I would use the one right off West Street. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll do it. You're in. I did the Tiger King. Somebody wanted me to do that,
Oh, yeah.
I stood on the hood. I actually grew a mustache for that, which looked horrible, but it was fun. And then I did a Godfather takeoff, which I had somebody playing the Godfather theme and an accordion in the corner, and it was hysterical. And we just came up with all kinds of fun stuff. And every one of those things generated between $1,000 to $3,000 for the food pantry. So when we were all told, we were probably a couple $100,000 on the positive side to help people out. It was great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But I got you get tired of thinking of wacky stuff to do, but it was fun. I had a good time. I got paid for that too. Isn't that great? You get paid to
And you're learning too. You're becoming, a host in a sense.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
to a lot of people
and you're
watching.
raising money, and
Which nothing
for the
better than that.
community. Yeah, and it definitely changed people's lives. There's no question about that. And I just enjoyed it. I loved it.
And you're engaging people, and that's what this is all about. People want to connect in any way they can. We're thirsty for that. We need that, and that's kind of the vision we had and why we were compelled to do this. Is people want to hear these conversations. Most importantly, I feel like people want to tell their story. I wanted to tell my story. We had a guest on last week who said, my story is important. I want to tell it, and I think there's an unbelievable amount of people that want to hear these stories, because I think that what we've lost in society, this most recent time, is authenticity. I think a lot of the social media scrubs things clean, and you don't see what real life is. People talking about mistakes they made in the past and learning if you can learn from other people's mistakes. So I can't thank you enough. For you to come out of your way and be a part of this for us, we really appreciate it. We think we're doing something good for the community. And you certainly been doing that your whole life. So I I can't wait maybe to have you back on and you can do a spitfire of those 5 questions to us. And
Well, we should try one right now. The audience wants to know, how close were we to getting Amazon?
We weren't. So we got unwound by the previous governor, not the current governor. So what happened is that he wanted to do a regional approach in the Hartford area. They liked us better. There are other projects that I left for the current mayor that will rock your socks off if they come through. That's a little teaser that I can throw out to you. So, it's one of the things I do now too is I love doing is I work with young politicians on either side of the aisle. They reach out, they call, I meet with them and try to map out a career plan for them or ask them what they think is important. I like that mentoring. It's fun. I don't charge for it or anything like that. I just do it. People have taken advantage of that. So, how do you get from point A to point B? I find that it kind of adds a little teacher thing in there that I used to do.
Well, back to your roots.
Yeah, and so it's been fun. So we weren't that close, but we are real close. I can't go there, but we're very close with something else. That's all I can say. It's big, huge,
Well,
most tremendous thing you've ever seen. Tremendous, bigger than you've ever seen.
But we definitely have to have you back on.
Absolutely. And look, anytime you want to come on, we can talk some other stuff. I think there's things to learn from my battle with that brain tumor. I think that's a little bit more than what we can do right now. Some of the things that I work with young people in terms of how to get promoted, right? I think people struggle in that work, like what's acceptable work practice, right? So I use an acronym, SEER. You see the future. So you work on things like your skills, be the best at what you can do. You work on things like your education, get as much education, including the little conferences and seminars that are offered. Go to those. Those are valuable and they're important. And then get engaged, right? You engage with the people around you in your office. Don't sit there like a hermit. Get involved. Be part of that party. And finally, the last thing, the most important thing to getting that promotion is relationships, right? I mean, people have written whole books on how to win friends and influence people, and it's all about developing relationships. And that gets you to that next level. And young people today, I think, struggle at that piece. They think it's, hey, I'm the best at accounting. I got to move right up. It doesn't work that way, right?
No.
You got to have emotional intelligence like you guys have. You got to be able to relate. You got to lead. You got to be able to lead people, and you can't do that if you're only good at accounting. That you won't be a good candidate. So those are things I've been doing and working on, and I really enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, I love that. You can write a book.
Yeah, we talk about the masterminds, networks. It's about what you know. It's kind of doing this.
Wait, I got to say this. I don't belong to the masterminds. I belong to the neverminds.
Oh, what is that? Let me hear that.
The neverminds are a bunch of my mid-50 friends that we sit in the basement on Sundays, smoke cigars, and watch the football games. All of us, we call ourselves the neverminds because there is an alternative group called the masterminds.
Masterminds, yeah.
So nobody cares about us.
It's
a great group, though.
Yeah. Well, we loved having you on. Like Steve said, we got to have you back soon. We love listening to your story for the short amount of time that we had, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and looking forward to diving into something different next time.
Absolutely. Happy to do it and wish you the best with this. And can't wait to see it, and I'll be happy to share it with everybody I can. So thank you very much.
Can't wait. Thank you.